So my name is Leonardo. I'm studying English language and teaching. So before the programme, I was working as a volunteer TESOL teacher in public education, so secondary schools and primary schools. But I decided that I wanted to work primarily in TESOL and applied linguistics. So I basically decided to come to BGU. My mum used to be a TESOL teacher for 20 years. She basically gave me an overview of her experiences of teaching abroad, and I was always really fascinated in her cultural integration experiences and how she felt as a foreigner teaching English abroad. First language acquisition and TESOL methodologies. One of the lecturers from BGU, his teaching style is really quite idiosyncratic. It's quite funny. It's quite unique, and the way he shares his experiences of teaching TESOL is really interesting, and particularly he makes you as a student feel engaged. You're not internalising the content passively. You actually feel like you're engaged in every aspect of the lesson, and because he shows you kind of demonstrations of how to teach, how to implement a particular teaching method, and he shares his experiences, which is really great. Doing practice teaching demonstrations in the class, like teaching phonology, things like that. Everybody just had fun, just practicing teaching, and it's one of those things where it's you're not going to get it right for the first time when you teach a class, particularly with large groups of students. It's really interesting to see how people's knowledge and skills have developed throughout from the first year to the second year. One of the main reasons why I came to BGU was that I didn't want to feel, I always had this preconceived view of university lectures being very sort of passive, very sort of kind of unengaging. But I think that at BGU, that stereotype, that cliche is really negated, because the lecturers just really they really want to engage with the students and ask them questions what do you think? What do you think about this? And they actually really want to share their own personal teaching experiences, and that's what I think makes BGU really special. My favourite piece of submitted work was my presentation that I did for the historical linguistics module. I really enjoyed that module because a lot of people, we presented our own presentations in front of the whole class, and with both our lecturers watching. It was really fun to see how people deal with the time constraints. It was really interesting how people kind of use different visual images to communicate their ideas across, and I really enjoyed it in particular because it was my first time presenting in front of a class, and I was really passionate about what I was the subject area that I'd chosen. It was to do with South African English, and it was related to how the varieties of English developed through the British colonial period. I chose that particular period to study because I was really interested in English as a global language and how it has developed throughout the years, and I think that it was quite nerve-wracking, but I managed to get quite a good grade for it because of the amazing support that I had from my classmates and my lecturers. Throughout the whole of the first year, I didn't feel like a passive member of the class. I felt like a very just a very like somebody who's very active and has an active role in their own learning development. And I think that's one of the key things that the lecturers at BGU really want to emphasise. Yeah, I would say that always having a hobby is really good. So something that you like doing outside of like studying, making sure that you have like at least one, like at least your weekends free. It's really important that to have that free time, just so you can enjoy yourself and like just come back the next week and also like recharge your batteries. Kind, empathetic, reassuring. They're just very like empathetic with the students, idiosyncratic in the way they express their personalities, which is really what makes the classes, the lectures really special. They really pay attention to like the students' in like differences and how they are like an integral part of the cohort in the year group. Well, I would like to be working abroad and teaching TESOL. I would like to possibly work in Latin America, like somewhere that's very ethnically diverse. I would say when I first started, I had like no idea of how to write academically and no understanding of English and how to use it correctly. And I was just really just stuck. And I think that I would tell myself, you don't have to spend evenings working on assignments and things like that. You can manage your time more effectively if you just if you plan things in advance and work on assignments early. Always find out where there's support for mental health. Please use the resources in the library because they're really good and there are a lot of good books that you can find. The chaplaincy, at the university, they offer a lot of good student events and they offer a lot of support to students in many ways, and they just help to foster a community-oriented atmosphere at the university, which is something that's really special about BGU, is because that no matter where you are at any point of the year, there'll always be somebody there with whom you can talk and with whom you can share your study experiences with, problems, things like that. It's really good to talk to people, take part in student-oriented activities and events so that you can have those interpersonal relations and not feel like you're isolated and alone throughout your studies. Applied linguistics, you can do anything from teaching in secondary schools, teaching abroad, or you can work as a speech and language therapist. So there's many different options from which you can choose. You don't necessarily have to become a teacher, which is what surprised me actually, because there's lots of other different disciplines in which you can become involved. The great thing about language is that everybody needs it. It's an essential tool for communication. So even if you don't necessarily want to become an applied linguist, you could become something that involves using language effectively.